During the 1930s to 1950s, Australia was beginning to progress itself in becoming a rationalised and technologised nation with modern design and had hoped to renew the nation's overall image similar to the rest of the world's modern design outlooks. To support their hopes, the government recruited many talented designers to collectively contribute to the Australian National Tourism Association. ANTA wanted to pursue attraction to overseas visitors to Australia by creating graphic design posters mirroring the lifestyle and a rebranded image of Australia to promote in London, San Francisco, and Bombay locations. In this video, I will be discussing one of ANTA's well-known travel poster designers, Percy Trompf, who was able to portray the ideal images of a modernized Australia that helped identify the nation through modernist design principles and techniques. In addition, I will also be discussing whether the design principles and the goal of advertising an Australian look that Trompf utilized are further influencing and continuing within the 21st century's tourism campaign UnDiscover Australia. Australian posters have been produced ever since the early 19th century, initially starting as posters with text alone by letterpresses, in which posters became important elements of showcasing the Australian city life. Furthermore came the idea of advertising, which began in the early 20th century, where branding techniques produced a new commercial culture. In addition was the introduction of the global modernist design movement, in which artists, architects, and designers rejected past styles in search of utopia after the mass killings of World War I and the Russian Revolution. It contained many design principles that were greatly used to plan and make objects suited to our way of life, abilities, and ideals. From the 1920s onwards, the Australian government sought to compete in this new service of travel advertising that was the hype around the world. There were economic advantages of tourism and benefits to promote the nation to local and overseas targets. The ANTA was established for this purpose, to advertise posters and to place Australia on the world's travel map and to keep it there. Michelle Heathington states that these posters presented many of Australia's unique attractions and colourful images of its land and seascapes, flora and fauna, and attractive people who were enjoying outdoor activities, as well as incorporating many modernist design principles. Percy Trompf, one of ANTA's many designers who incorporated principles and authentic illustrations, commissioned a range of promotional travel posters that successfully presented a modern Australia. Trompf, born on 30th of May 1902 at Beaufort, Victoria, was a great commercial artist. He was educated at Sebastopol State School, Ballarat Junior Technical School, and the Ballarat School of Mines Art School, where he was an editor and secretary of a student magazine team. In 1923, he designed chocolate boxes and wrappings for A.W. Allen when he joined a commercial art firm of Giles and Richards. He then continued to create his own studio, where he employed many artists to create thousands of advertising posters that contained bright, colourful, and optimistic images which brought broad appeal during the Depression. He became a well-known poster artist by 1933 and got offered to judge a Ballarat Technical Art School poster competition, as well as joining the ANTA and Victorian Government Railways. His works were greatly inspired by the Australian landscape and wildlife, where vibrant coloured posters were re-owned in Australia and attracted attention in Britain and North America. The Bondi Beach Australia poster illustrates a modernistic approach of evoking the spirit of the bright beaches Australia was famous for. It incorporates a white man in a bathing suit and two other white women who elegantly stand before the busy Bondi Beach that is surrounded by modern homes in an overcrowded environment with people and cars. Through this poster, Australia was globally seen as a nation containing a vibrant and busy lifestyle among its warm and sunny beaches. The idea of mass production that the modern design movement introduced is further depicted through the imagery of overloaded cars and modernist-style homes. Trompf also utilized pure forms and primary vibrant colors like yellow and blue, mirroring the colors of the Australian beach and sunny skies. In addition, it features a simple horizontal composition of the sans serif title Australia, simply placed below the poster's main illustration. This gives more insight to the illustrative imagery of the beach rather than the slogans, presenting less text is more. Trompf's Bondi Beach poster introduced a social and cheerful image of Australia's beach lifestyle and landscape, with its usage of outstanding colours and pure forms of imagery, as well as weaving in an economic background of mass production. In contrast, Trompf as well illustrated many urban cities and naturistic landscapes, such as deserts, mountains, forests, and caves of Australia in his travel poster designs. Winter Holidays by Rail to Central Australia illustrates the desert landscape with large-scaled rock-like mountains surrounding a line of people riding camels. His detailed illustrations that present textures and real-life forms of objects and people, which are as well presented in many of his other travel poster designs, strongly evoked the spirit of its time and usage of pure forms as there were no historical or futuristic elements added. Trompf utilized modern machine technologies such as lithography printing that allowed for mass production of images to form the basis of attractive, inexpensive, and accessible advertisements for mass audiences. It was a technique that enabled the designer to draw onto stone or transfer paper, allowing multiple prints as well. Tones ranging from blacks to greys were easily produced, along with easily added white lines and corrections made by scratching through onto the stone. Trompf further expresses the modern times presented through a black streamlined train that is passing through, not only depicting that there is a new form of travelling, but a form of travelling for tourists to get to this advertised location. Peter Spirit states that the ANTA encouraged its designers to depict a wide range of Australian sights and sights, in which Trompf further produced travel posters associated with Australia's flora, fauna and activities. The Great Barrier Coral Reef poster captures Australia's beautiful sea life of corals and fishes, as well as above it is a horizontal composition that separates land from the sea, where 3 males are on a boat fishing. There is an Art Deco style type, firstly from the bottom expressing the location in big text, in contrast to a small text at the top in which says, "Take a Kodak." In this poster and many others, flora and fauna are seen to be potential trophies for tourists to hunt down with their Kodak cameras, and Trompf uses action terms to encourage tourists to travel to that advertised location. Similarly, there are many activity posters Trompf designed like garden or naturistic walks, experiencing Australian farms and visiting resorts. This presents the social change of lifestyle within the nation, that there are many touristy attractions that the international has yet to see and may fulfill the practical needs of modern life through Trompf's application of combining flora, fauna and activities. The UnDiscover Australia campaign is one of the 21st century's versions of Australia's tourist advertising campaigns that not only present beaches and cute furry animals, but as well including the unique dynamic events, underground bars, and hidden secrets found far off the beaten track. As technology advanced over time, the methods and materials used for advertising campaigns have greatly developed since the 1950s. Trompf used the poster advertising method in comparison to the contemporary campaign where they promoted modern Australia through 20-second YouTube videos. Trompf and UnDiscover Australia as well had different intentions, where the travel posters were to attract and educate international tourists to show the newly built society and nation, in contrast to the campaign that wants to promote Australia as fashionable and desirable by challenging stereotypes, bust the myths, and create a more diverse view of the country. In this sense, both the historic designer and contemporary campaign display the principle of anti-historicism. They further do have similarities in creating a design that evoked the spirit of the times. They both presented the importance of promoting modern Australia, in which Trompf illustrated genuine landscapes, flora, fauna and activities. Similarly, where UnDiscover Australia is rather videoing the real-life landscapes and features of the nation. The ANTA campaign's attempt to bring in international tourists was not successful, as 50% of its tourists were made up of New Zealanders. Nevertheless, ANTA's and Trompf's unique travel poster designs still showed the purpose of a re-imaged, modernized Australia with the assistance of modernist design principles and materials. In addition to the approach of evoking the spirit of the nation and remaining pure forms is continued within the contemporary tourism campaigns like UnDiscover Australia presented.